like to get the session started. I've been very fortunate to know Kurt for a long time, from when he got started in broadcasting to when he ran one of the country's leading music research firms, to when he did market research and radio ratings. And I remember when he got involved very early on, it had to be in the 90s, with internet radio. And I'm very fortunate at AccuRadio to just sit down the hall from Kurt and get to talk with him and hear how he starts to develop his state of the industry speech, and to see what his thinking is of where he thinks the business is going to be going. And so if I could introduce Kurt Hanson to let us know what he thinks the state of the industry is. Kurt?
Okay, you'll have enough of me before this day is over, huh? So this year's theme is I want to talk about the future of radio. For those of you who are here at a RAIN conference for the first time, a little bit of background on myself is I've been in radio since high school, or since late junior high school actually, back when Brandy by Looking Glass apparently was on the top of the charts. We've been publishing RAIN now for almost 13 years, RAIN summits, we've been doing for 8 or 9, including 3 this year, including Europe. We spun out of that our own, to kind of practice what we preach, our own personalizable internet radio product. 975 channels of jazz and classical and Broadway aimed at a 35 to 64-year-old audience. My shtick in these annual, someone's laughing already, presentations is to use a few 60s pop culture references. So it could be The Men from U.N.C.L.E., or it could be Star Trek, as you've heard alluded to. This year, it's the great 1966 TV show, The Time Tunnel, which was really cool because it was broadcast in 1966, but it was set in 1968. So we kids thought that was fantastic. About 2 time-traveling scientists. And the idea is that we're going to use that metaphor to kind of look into the future, and from the future, look back into the past for analogies in the next 20 minutes. So what I want to do is talk to you about a few trends that are going on that are sociological and technological that are affecting how people use radio, and then how you can use that in your entrepreneurial efforts as well. The first is that we're living in a world of on-demand variety. There used to be, Cheerios used to be a pretty simple product. There are now, I think, almost a dozen different flavors of Cheerios, counting different packaging variations. I used to be happy when I went into a bar if they had an amber-colored beer. And now it's, we've got 3 different West Coast pumpkin ales this month. Which one would you like? Netflix is a great example of this. It's almost infinite variety and almost instantly available. The second trend, and we've been talking about it a lot today, is the primacy of the smartphone. The idea that what started out as a replacement for this has now turned into a replacement for your camera, your address book. For young people, it's their watch. No one buys calculators. For tens of millions of people now, it's their alarm clock, their video camera, their library, their record player, and their record collection, all in one device. And most importantly for today, for tens of millions of people, it is now their primary radio. And the reason the smartphone can do all this, and the reason it's so transformational, is that it's a high-powered personal computer shrunk down, science fiction-wise, into like a few-ounce-sized device that fits in your shirt pocket. So, incredibly important, and we'll circle back to it. Attach this now to the fact that we're kind of in a world of near infinite bandwidth. There's plenty at home, plenty at work, but even in your car and on the street, it really is essentially, in the long run, infinite. If a cell phone provider needs more bandwidth, they can simply put up more towers and make the cells smaller, and that's almost infinitely divisible. Furthermore, the problem is whatever the opposite of exacerbated would be, unexacerbated by the fact by the phenomenon called offloading. The fact that when you're at home or at work or in a coffee shop, you're on a Wi-Fi network, so you're not using your data plan. So I believe now the majority of streaming usage on mobile devices, correct me if I'm wrong, is now used in an offloaded situation. which makes it even easier. Tie this with the rise of the tablet computer, as originally seen here on Star Trek Original Series. Note that whereas we've got thinner tablet computers already, but we don't have those cool 2 flashing lights on top yet. That's coming in iPad 5. This is really taking off. In the Arbitron-Edison infinite dial study, usage leapt in the last year. It's now almost up to half of US populations. And if you haven't tried it yet, it is an absolutely great form factor for using for a radio device, because you've got all these extra square inches that you can use for graphics and player controls and things like that. And it's just a great device to use to listen to the radio. As a result of these trends, consumers are embracing online radio. And I know I say this every year, but they're embracing it more and more every year. From the infinite dial study, where they've been tracking usage for more than a decade, just in the last 6 years, the weekly cume for internet radio has gone up by almost 253%. Then those people who are listening more. That people 6 years ago said they were listening about 6 hours a week, and now more people are listening, and they say they're listening 12 hours a week. So that's almost 200% of what it was. And then you can multiply these numbers together, and you learn that internet radio's total hours of usage are up almost 500% in 6 years. So the medium is really taking off. Now, I said consumers are primarily embracing online radio, but I was oversimplifying what, as you've heard alluded to today, or maybe even said a few times, what consumers are really embracing is personalizable radio. Which makes sense because when in the infinite dial, you guys ask why people are using online radio, the primary reason is to control or choose the music being played. So, makes sense. From the Triton Digital Webcast metrics numbers, we can see this very clearly. What I've done here is what I do each Brain Summit is chart them over time. And this line here is the over the last 4.5 years, streams of AM, FM radio stations owned by the top 5 broadcasting companies. So it's getting up close to about an AQH of 400,000 people, but you see it's growing modestly, let's say. What's growing is personalizable internet radio, primarily Pandora, but others in the category are seeing growth increases as well. Now there's a phenomenon that we've never seen before right here, where we often see summertime flatness, what we call the summer doldrums for webcasters. In this case, it was also Pandora cutting back available free hours for their listeners. There's a limit of 40 hours a month on mobile devices. 20. At any rate, that cap is about to be lifted, and we'll see if that trend just keeps going right back like that or not. Nobody, I think, knows at the moment. In any case, what's happening is a phenomenon called value migration. I've talked previously about books by a guy named Clayton Christensen, but there's a book I like just as much and recommend just as strongly called Value Migration by an author whose name I can't pronounce, but you can check the title in the App Store. And the theme of this book is that when consumers' priorities are changing and companies come up with a different business design, that's when value is created. That's when companies are able to build billion-dollar businesses. So, for example, SiriusXM has built itself up to be, according to the stock market now, a $24 billion business in terms of valuation, which is probably close to as big as all AM/FM broadcast companies put together. And the reason they were able to do that was consumer tastes were changing, and they came up with a different business model. They decided to go national and subscription-based. And it wasn't just the first half, but was the second half as well. Similarly, Pandora last week crossed the threshold of being a $4 billion company, up from, I think, $1.5 billion at our last radio show summit. And that's incredible growth, and it has to do with a combination of changing customer priorities, what consumers are interested in, and a different business model. Being national and selling individual streams and just selling it quite differently than broadcast radio has sold in the past. Well, one aspect of this that's kind of tough for broadcasters to get their hands on is whether there is a barrier to entry in this industry, but it's a different business design. And in this case, one of the barriers to entry is complexity. That, you know, this is our kind of chart of how AccuRadio works, and it requires systems to ingest music and to put the tracks into onto servers elsewhere, and to build channels, and to you have to have separate apps for them, and then you have to have this really massive database of that ties together tastes and ratings and programmers' choices and frequencies and all this stuff. It's not easy to do. It's not something you can slam together easily. So there's a real, if you want to enter this space, you've got a barrier to entry in that it's not easy to do. Our timing is good. iTunes Radio debuts tomorrow. You may have seen some advanced look at what it looks like. You can see some of that on the Apple website right now, and we'll all get a chance to try it tomorrow. My belief of what's going to happen to this is primarily it's going to grow the product category. That to go back to the days of when John and I worked together, when there was a battle between radio stations, it was great for both of them. It got more press, it got more consumer interest, and the category grew. When one of the competitors went away, you would think that would be good for the remaining brand, but it actually historically isn't. Battles are good, and this upcoming, the more there's stuff in the press about Pandora versus Apple, the more it's going to grow the category, and I think be better for everybody. I want to use the time travel analogy for a second about opportunities for you in terms of value migration and how you might take advantage of that. Suppose you could travel right now back in time to 1968. And you knew what was going to happen with music, that it was going to migrate to FM and that AM was going to have to reinvent itself. What would you do? My guess is what you would do is you would snap up FMs and snap up opportunities as quickly and aggressively as you could grab them, because that's what you would use this fantastic device for. So analogously, if we are seeing another transition like that as music moved from AM to FM, if it's moving now from FM to internet, you could target 35 to 64-year-olds. You could target teenagers. That's a pretty wide open opportunity. We've seen Univision is targeting Hispanics. Radio 1 is targeting African Americans. One could conceivably target Asian Americans. One could target only New Yorkers, a personalizable brand aimed at New Yorkers, or Los Angelinos, or Madisonians. There's lots of opportunities internationally. Many countries that don't have personalizable radio yet. There are opportunities for you. No one has figured out personalizable news-talk. I think there's some efforts in that direction, but it hasn't been solved yet. Or any specific music genre. You could become a specialist in jazz or bluegrass or folk or something. As this happens, if you're an AM/FM owner, you have to think, okay, what should I do as well? And the answer to that, I think, is to go increasingly LLL, which I'll define in a moment. We saw, I talked a moment ago about how music moved from AM to FM, and it moved to FM primarily because FM was better. FM had stereo, and FM had better frequency response. Well, similarly, internet radio is a great delivery mechanism for a music stream because you can skip songs and ban artists and merge things together. So if just as AM reinvented itself and stayed healthy, if FM reinvents itself and stays healthy, I think it'll do things that are live and local and or linear. So that could be things like all news, which is live and coverage area, it's local, matches the area of interest. Sports talk. There's some markets now with 3 or 4 sports talk stations. Perfect for FM. Personality-based CHR. If you care about the personalities as much as the music, then this makes sense on FM. It's a great delivery mechanism. And internet delivery doesn't add much to the experience. Or anything that's very curated music. If it's a AAA station, for example, where the disc jockey really cares about the set of music, then FM is a terrific place for that, where internet doesn't add much to the process. In any case, what you want to do as you make these business plans is anticipate the future. I want to take a look. We've had a little bit of debate about where the current state of internet radio is in terms of share. But I'd like to do this, show you some math by demo cell and kind of project out for a given demo for 2014 what percentage of radio listening may be online radio listening. And I guess ad-supported online radio listening. So, okay, topic? All right. So let's take a look. What we're going to do is I'm going to express this in this equation. What's internet radio's audience as a share of all ad-supported radio's audience? And we'll do that by filling in these things, and it may look intimidating, but it isn't really. First, we're going to have to, and the trick though is we have to do this by demo cell, and that's why I have had trouble doing this before, but I think I've got a way to do it. US population by demo cell is readily available. That is from census data. Then you multiply that by persons using radio, AM/FM radio, expressed as a rating, and that's a little bit harder because Arbitron used to do press releases on this every quarter. The last one I was able to find was 2008, and since then, you kind of have to suss it out from the press releases that they do issue. But I think I can defend these ratings as probably pretty good. You then multiply that times, okay, so what percentage of that would be represented by streaming? Or express streaming as a percentage of that. And we go to the Triton Digital numbers as our best source for that, I believe. But you have to add in estimates for their non-clients, people outside the top 20, and what's going to happen next year, including some estimates about the effect of Apple. And then that's, again, back to 12 plus, so you have to multiply that by indexes for demo cell. And the only data I have found on that is Pandora press releases, or sales pieces, press releases, where they have announced what their audience index is by demo cell. And for the industry, I've taken that and I've aged it, because the non-Pandora webcasters, I think, are a lot of them are public radio stations, and a lot of other broadcasters who might have a slightly older audience than Pandora. That'll give us the numerator, and then the denominator is stuff we've already looked at. So we get this. Projections for AQH for AM/FM radio in gold and internet radio in blue next year. And thus, in the 12 to 24 demo next year, my guess is that about 18% of ad-supported radio will be online radio. So if you are doing something where you want to target 12 to 24s, I think online radio is clearly something you need to pay attention to. If you're looking at 18 to 34-year-olds, I think it'll be even more. I believe it'll be 22% of ad-supported radio listening next year. For 18 to 49s, I think it'll be 17%. For 25-54s even, I think it'll be about 14%. And then in that 35-plus audience that we talked about on the car panel, people in my age group who are still around a little while longer, 7%. So there's still opportunities here because it's not happening anywhere near as quickly yet. The title of this little bit was The Future of Radio, and I want to pose a final kind of rhetorical question. Are we there yet? With the answer that I think, kind of we're getting there. That if there had been an episode of the time tunnel where everyone in the world was connected to powerful shirt pocket-sized computers that they communicated with constantly, we would have thought that was kooky science fiction. But you take the L in Chicago now in drive times, and almost everyone is connected constantly to a shirt pocket-sized powerful computer. We're kind of in the future. Your primary PC being the size and weight of a magazine sounds futuristic, but if you're using an iPad or an iPad mini, basically true right now. Sushi being ubiquitous. I could have never imagined that just a few years ago. But you can buy it at Walgreens now, and it's actually not that horrible. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. being a major motion picture. It's in pre-production right now. It'll be in your theater next year. And then seriously, technology will continue to advance. That the few ounce size personal computer of today will be something else a few years from now. And it will be something even smaller and lighter and cooler and unimaginable a few years after that. In this world, radio will be more pervasive and more effective than ever before. So it is a wonderful time to be in it, and I'm glad to be in it with all of you. And for the first time ever at one of these things, I got done before the flashing light went off. So thanks, and we can have a few questions if you want. Do we have anyone who wants to work the mic? And does anyone want to discuss? It doesn't even have to be a question. Until this yellow light starts flashing, we'll then have 3 minutes, and then after that we'll cut off. Yes? Chris in the back of the room. And it's on a timer, and it's not actually a hook. Excellent question, Dwight. Anybody? We have a plant at the front of the room.
The question becomes, I watch you doing your presentation with a... Okay. I watch you doing your presentation, very nicely done, by the way, with your iPhone, right?
Yep.
Just barely big enough for you to hang on to and activate at the same time. So the question is, what is the next platform for this? They're already so small you can't use them half the time. And, we had a panel discussing, the safety issues in cars. So is there truly going to be another platform for phones, for iPads, for computers? What's your feeling on that?
Well, I think we see it actually going both directions, that the Samsung approach is to go larger and very thin. But that's also a great form factor. So there's a group of people that would like this or even smaller, kind of more shaped like an iPod mini or something. Or maybe even a watch-sized device, which could work once Siri is up to speed. If you don't need a keyboard, that'll work. But I think it'll go both directions. Some people, someday, maybe not in our lifetimes, it'll be, the hardware will be thumbnail size, and the display will be holographic or something. But right now, it's a panoply of possibilities, and I think that's the real trend. Google Glass. We saw someone in the room with Google Glass.
I had them on.
And how was it?
It was pretty amazing. Gavin from JumpWire has a pair.
And hopefully he'll be at the cocktail party and we can all try it. But yes, anything else? We got the yellow light. Time for one more comment if someone's got one. Go both ways.
Sorry, I was finishing my Tootsie Roll. I saw the formula for your AQH numbers, but I see a lot of different AQH numbers from different internet websites, and they're all a little different.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, where are you getting your data to create this formula from, and how accurate are they in actuality?
Well, the census data is accurate. The Arbitron persons using radio, I think I'm within a couple percentage points of a pretty good guess. The Triton data is accurate currently, but I'm kind of estimating where 2014 will be, kind of projecting out trends. And the indexes by demo cell are, defensible. Well, basically, taking the Pandora numbers, which is based on a huge sample size, and then aging them, which is an estimate. So it's a combination of stuff, but I think it is better than simply self-reported data where you just ask people what they think they do, which is not. I have in my experience as a market research guy for 20 years, you know that's not exactly right, and you have to. Usually consumers exaggerate, and you have to bring it down.
Okay, quick follow-up question. Triton comes out with a streaming a rating every month, and it seems to be based. Is it based on CAT's information? I mean, I noticed some of the radio online websites disappear from their ranking. Sometimes they're there, and sometimes they're not. Can you explain that?
Sure, I think I can. Speaking for you guys at Triton, that is measured at the server level only by their clients. So a station will appear or disappear if they choose not to be a Triton client or choose to become a Triton client. And then there are two different reports. One is domestic and one is international, and webcasters have a choice as to whether they want to be on either or both of those lists. So sometimes you will see some broadcasters not on the international, or on one list but not the other. But you can easily track down the press release that's got the footnotes that explain most of this stuff. If I got time, oh, the red light's flashing. I gotta be true to my word. Thank you all, and we got one more great panel, and then the RAIN Awards coming up next.